So we're all gonna fucking die. The other day, I reposted a clip of um, Yukio Mishima or Mishima Yukio, depending how you say it, the Nobel Prize nominated right wing novelist. I posted a clip where he has this quote where he says something along the lines of how modernity deprives people of dramatic deaths. We we die either of sickness or by accident in hospital beds. Like he says, like bees in honeycomb cells. Now, Mishima died by suicide after his personal militia group took a general hostage, and he gave a pro-imperialist speech to an assembled military. He committed seppuku, ritual suicide. So he died. He died dramatically. He never got old. But if we live long enough to get old, we ourselves get busier and busier. We see our friends and family become busier. And the further into adulthood we get as we go along, the more we feel the burden of the world. And in turn, the world starts to feel the burden of us too, especially in more modern, less traditional societies and environments. The whole world starts to feel like one of Mishima's honeycomb cells. Pink Floyd has a song called Time on Dark Side of the Moon. And there's a lyric that says, hanging on in quiet desperation is the English way. In Ozu's Tokyo story, it's the Japanese post-war industrialized moderating way, as 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 he depicts this resignation of a modernizing reality in Japanese culture. So tonight we're gonna talk about aging. We're gonna talk about generational dynamics, camera angles, tatami, mat, perspectives, etc. with Ozu. But I see, separate from all that or included in it, I see these shots of smokestacks that really strike me as really, to me, really the most important thing about the film. These smokestacks that seem to be signals or that they're signaling this wanting to blow up or to blow on all of the politeness, the polite society, the abiding, the repression, the tension. I see with those smokestacks, I see Godzilla looming. This is 1953. And I see on the end of those smokestacks in the future, I see Akira. I see Tetsuo the Iron Man, which we just recorded earlier this year. I see Beat Takeshi Kitano and others. So I see the expression of the tension that isn't expressed in this film. The drama that's the non-expression, I see it played out, obviously, in Japanese cinema future. Rick, you wanted a palate cleanser. We get one here, but I think underneath it, I think it's not as clean as people probably perceive. What do you think?
I love this film. It's a film that grows in its importance to me as I've gotten older. I think I've in the last 5 years I've given up on an aspect of my life and returned to the place I was born and raised. I've moved into a different aspect of my life, and I've watched people die, and I've watched those that I've cared about, that I continue to care about, grow older, and it's a it's a difficult way to live one's life, but I don't know that there's an alternative, and I don't know that there's any way of getting around it. I see what you're saying with the film and the analytical post-war aspect, the modernization. But for me, this is a story of family. All of that does play into it. There's no doubt. I mean, because there are factors that influence every aspect of who we are, and it is definitely a commentary on post-war Japan and Ozu's examination of both his culture, his country, and his art. But I think the thing that really strikes home, and the aspect of this film that continues to find it an audience, and for those people who do make their way into Japanese film, who do start their path into world cinema, they come to this film, and there is an aspect of the common humanity that we all experience and struggle with. We're all going to see our parents pass away. We see our grandparents. We see our grandparents pass away. We watch our parents deal with that. They're not only dealing with their parents dying, they're dealing with the reality of their own mortality. We watch it from a little bit of a distance. And then we're reminded of it when we watch our parents getting older. When you see your mom moving a little bit slower and needing to take your hand to step up or to step off a curb, and it's instinctual. You get your ass right next to her, and you put your hand out for her to take it because that's your job. You better fucking be there to do that. This film depicts all of that, and it's struggle. It was a struggle to watch it last night. I remember pieces of it. I know I've seen it, but I don't remember seeing it. I'm a little bit more familiar with Ozu's late spring, early autumn, late summer, day in October films where they're essentially trying to marry off a daughter. All really good films. But this was a little bit more towards the marrow of who we are. If you're fortunate enough to have a family and parents that you care about, which I recognize not everybody does, but if you have that and you watch your parents get old, it's not easy. And there's nothing about this film that pretends to make it easy. And I think one of the things about it that I really found myself enchanted by was its. I think I was overwhelmed by the fact that it didn't go. It didn't go for bold dramatics. It didn't have that moment where the parents. It didn't have that moment where the children scream at their parents for the mistakes that were made, the perceived idea of owing everything to all of the miseries of their life being owed to their parents' mistakes, which is something that we've seen numerous times throughout most films. This film played out more naturally the way I think actual families exist. where not everything is said, and sometimes it's not said out of fear, it's not said out of respect, it's not said out of inability to put these emotions into words. I think it's the most honest and heartfelt look at a family. And you step back and you see the faults and you see the selfishness of the children, but you also recognize the struggle of trying to fit those that you love into your lives when there are so many factors pulling you every which way. And I think it handles it honestly, and I think it handles it without a sense of blame. There are definitely underlying emotions that are not spoken, but I feel like that's who we are as people. And I fell in love with this film last night. I really did. It's I don't know. Maybe it's because I see myself there to a degree. It's like I said, it's a lot of it is the baggage that you bring into a film, and I would be lying to myself and everybody listening to this thing and to you if I said that I'm not carrying a lot into this movie. I'm interested in your take.
Well, yeah, I mean, many of us are at that place, right?
You get to this place when you hit your 40s.
Yeah, I mean,
This is where we are.
yeah, we're definitely at that place.
Mhm.
Although I tend to, so I can look at this with two minds, I guess. Or I guess if you want to say, well, I look at it with my mind, I look at it with my heart. From my mind's, well, let's start with my heart's perspective, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like yesterday was the anniversary of my grandmother's death. That was 30 years ago. Like I lived with her, so it was multi-generational household, like all of that. Um, uh, at the same time, I guess, if I don't take a step back and if it's basically how do you feel about this film, I find it, I see to me, I feel like there's an over sentimentality in the film, but I feel that it hides behind restraint. Um, and now I'm not saying that that's like that it's emotionally dishonest. I'm not going that far.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that it can feel like a lot of the stuff that isn't said. Um, it can veer into this kind of like overcast kind of quality of passive aggression, um, where the characters aren't confronting each other, but they'll look at the camera, and so they like we feel it, but it's like they don't feel it amongst each other. Um, and by looking at the camera and reflecting it back, it feels very over sentimentalized to me. And so I can see how potentially this is like a quiet critique of how elders are treated within that transfer into a more modern society. But at the same time, I can see how a film like this can be criticized itself while critiquing the situation. While the film critiques the situation potentially, I can see how it could also be criticized as being passive, the film
Hmm.
because um, there isn't enough distance in terms of the style of the film because the film is so restrained in tone, in story, in structure, and even in the way that it's filmed itself, where the camera is grounded. Um, there's not enough distance to even necessarily like to say that the critique itself is legible. Um, I'm not saying that he's endorsing that repression, but the film feels very repressed to me. Um, and at the same time, there's a part of me that's, and this is like a cynical part, where it's like this. This is where my heart is blending into my mind, and it's like I understand that philosophically, like there are elements culturally that affect the way that the characters are interacting, and that has to do with there's a sense of like the Buddhist transitory nature of reality, this concept of like mono no aware, like things pass, there's a Confucian influence on filial piety, how children are supposed to treat their parents, etc. Um, there's also a part of me that's like, well, how much of how much of praise that this is getting from Western critics, so-called Western critics, is because I can see them saying, well, oh, it's Asian and it's fucking slow, so it's meditative. Um, you see what I'm saying? Like,
I see what you're saying. But and there's any time there was an opportunity to question Western criticism of art, I embrace it because I think a lot of times we look at something through eyes of what we understand, what we know. We we force onto what we're watching the experiences of how art is perceived, and
right,
that is here. But I also think taking all of that into account, there is a degree of families all deal with emotional distress differently, but even those differences find a certain type of consistency in in each of our worlds. So
sure,
my family is very emotional. Um, but there are aspects of what I'm watching on the screen that I can empathize with, find sympathy with, and recognize with the struggles that I have. So it's a
sure,
deeply personal thing. Yeah. Um,
sure. And so sorry,
no, go ahead, please.
uh, I'm like, and I have to uh, disclose this part too. If if we're doing that, if
Hmm.
we're not going to be Ozu, and we're actually going to talk about it, um, I know what emotional repression looks like in
Yeah,
a family.
yeah.
Um,
See, I
so
don't
I
not
see
in my
this,
family, but I've seen it in others. Yeah.
and so like there's like how much of my response is like no, fuck that. Um, rage against the dying of the light.
Yeah.
Say what you mean.
Hmm.
Um, because because perhaps I recognize something,
Yeah.
and I don't know enough of Ozu's work to really approach it from the sense of like, well, he's complicit in this repression on a personal and or cultural level because his whole career is built like that. Like I can't say that because I haven't seen enough of his shit.
Well,
Um,
you don't even have to. Well, I'll give you one aspect, and you do what you want with it. Life informs art. You would agree?
yeah, and the other
Oh,
way around.
Ozu never married. He lived with his mother until her passing, and he died, I think, at the age of 60. No, 59. from cancer, I believe. He was a lifelong smoker, so probably esophageal cancer.
Right, but
He never
is it like
married.
is it the cancer that killed him or the fucking repression that killed him? You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's exactly,
um,
absolutely. So, um, I had a film professor in college who joked that Ozu made the same movie like 7 times, which is,
right.
I think, late spring, early summer, an autumn afternoon.
It was all the same year.
Yeah, basically. Setsuko Hara played the daughter in one, the sister in another. Um, she graduated to mother at one point. Um, and after Ozu's passing, I think she retired from film and disappeared. So
Yeah,
there's that aspect to it. But all of the repression, it's strange to me because I don't see it as a forced. And I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I don't see the repression in the film being forced. I see it as being a natural, maybe cultural, maybe specific to this family. But I've seen families like that where they won't talk about what is, stereotypically called the
of
elephant in the
course.
room.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and that's part of the frustration of this movie is that you want Chishū to take his wife and express how what the fuck good does it say that I should have been nicer to her when now that she's dead? Be nice to the woman while she's alive. But you can say that about your parents. You can say that about your grandparents. You can say that about your friends'
100%.
parents. It's a common. The fact of the matter is that these are things that occur so often in families and our lives that you can watch it on screen and scream at the characters knowing that you're not screaming at the characters in your life to do the same thing
Right. Yeah.
because
I mean,
because you're not brave
yes.
enough to do it. I'm not brave enough to tell my father to be nicer to my mom. I can't do it. I can't. It's that's my mom. That's my old lady. Fuck you. You know what I mean?
Or if you're in the loop of like, if you exist in one of those like dynamics, like you're not going to get very far even if you try to do that because the
Yeah.
other person isn't going to participate in that.
Yeah.
Um, that is just kind of like, um, and I mean, you could even question someone listening to this could even say, well, versus your approach to what we do versus my approach, it's
Hmm.
like, fuck, like, um, it's like one time I think you asked me, how do you feel about this movie? And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? How do I feel? What does that mean? Um, and I mean, obviously, look, like I write, I do creative shit, like so that's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's like that's not what I'm leading with. Um, and so even like my initial impression is like, oh, I see this as a fucking metaphor for um getting into like the way my mind is interpreting this. Is like I see the generation of the adult children as this is the this is the generation that's moving into this hyper modern world and they're just busy and they want to honor um like their parents and they want to do things and they want to kind of like not lose what they've been, which is the metaphor of Japan and Japanese culture. And I'm obviously this is a super simplification, and like I'm not a fucking expert in Japanese culture. I'm just giving riffing takes on it.
Hmm.
Um, and the fucking their kids are definitely not re- being repressed and all. They're like throwing tantrums and be like, "Fuck that! I want to do what I want to do." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh shit, that's the future of that's anime. That's the future of fucking Japanese cyberpunk. That's Akira. That's rebellion. Just what's they're gonna grow up to live in a dystopia in the cinema of the fucking 80s and beyond." Um, the the older generation is looking backwards, which that's what tends to happen, and that's, I mean, representative. The reason why I brought up Mishima is like Mishima is a problematic figure. Um, at one extreme because he's a fucking right winger, nostalgic for imperialism, misogynistic, closeted. Um, but his aesthetic was an aesthetic of intensity, violence and sex, beauty, um, spectacle. You could even say on like fascistic because of the mix of like so-called like vitality with like violence. And you know, you have that extreme with samurai films and looking back on this like glorious, so-called like glorious imagined past. Even Kurosawa, like what's his nickname?
The Emperor. Yeah.
The Emperor. That's a fucking nostalgia for imperialism transferred onto fucking a director. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it also means it's respect, but it, it, there's something to that.
Yeah.
And Ozu in the 50s represents this kind of transition and kind of like, well, this acceptance, this abiding by this transition and being like, well, like this is what it is, and this is a state of in betweenness, and it sounds like personally he was kind of like, well, um, this kind of poetic aesthetic of stillness mixed with repression that's gonna show it, but it's not gonna scream it up at the fucking rooftops. And so this kind of film, it's a mixture of all this stuff. And I know that this film is super like praised,
Hmm. It's
and I don't
considered
know
one of the
enough
greatest
about it.
films in the history of cinema. It's
Yeah,
considered one of the greatest. It's a 2012 Sight and Sound magazine voted it the greatest film ever made, above Citizen Kane, above Vertigo, above Seven Samurai. I don't know if I'd put it that high.
I I don't think I would either, but I can appreciate slow cinema. Like
Hmm.
uh, we and I have argued about
Hmm.
Bellatar. I love Tarkovsky. Obviously, those are different forms of slow cinema and
Hmm.
different forms of enduring suffering. Characters enduring suffering with 30-minute takes, and that sometimes require the audience to endure suffering. At least,
Yeah.
though, I think like there's more of a sense of you are going to watch something poetic. You may find it boring at times, but it's fucking poetic, and 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 the suffering may reach levels of being sublime. This is like super so domesticated,
Hmm.
and the setting is so domestic that it's a different kind of, for people like me, it's a different kind of suffering. It's a suffering that's mundane,
Well,
which is worse.
there's a, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up because there's a major difference between your life and my life. Is that you're married, you have in-laws,
I'm married now. Yeah,
you're married now. Yeah, I am not. I don't foresee that in my future. I'm not, lamenting. Oh well, but it does affect the way you view a thing, and there is something to be said about. There are elements of this film that I look at the family and I admire, and there are elements that bother me, um, that upset me, that I see the I see a certain level of selfishness, but also a level of the world works in such a way that it's impossible to not be the way
yeah,
their children are.
100%.
Yeah,
Um,
but
uh,
there is that moment at the end where you realize, well, part of the sadness is a show. Part of it is, well, let's just move on. Mom's dead,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I
I mean,
struggle
that's
with
kind
that.
of
Yeah.
That's why I feel like the little bit of that like over sentimentality, and
Hmm.
I think like the you bring up the married part. I think I heard I don't know if it was a passage from that crazy that Matheson, is it Matheson that wrote a Crazy Horse biography?
Hmm. Peter Mathias?
Um, yeah, Matthias.
Yeah.
Um, there's a passage, I think it's from that book, that where uh, he talks, or someone in the book or whatever describes Crazy Horses when they would move to different places. Um, they would all obviously ride together, but he would ride with them, but he would ride like parallel to them, like at a not a great distance, but enough of a distance that he was like on his own, like riding in the same direction
Yeah, I
with
remember
them, but
that.
like
Yeah.
off to the side.
Hmm.
Um, and when I heard that, it resonated with me in such a way that like I'm bringing it up now. Um, and I must have heard that in my mid to late 20s. So 20 years ago, and I it stayed with me. So I think this kind of attitude like precedes being married, precedes all of that. And I do believe in taking care of your in-laws. I believe in taking care of your elders, and like I saw it
Yeah.
growing up, taking care of, you know what I mean? Like I took care of my grandmother. I participated in that. Um, but I think there is also like for certain people, and I think a lot like whether it's generational or it's like Gen X or it's fucking the idea of like how I view myself as a creative person or whatever, there is also this element of domesticity that I find stifling, and I mean, how many people can relate to that? We find it stifling and potentially like soul crushing if you don't approach it itself creatively, if that makes sense.
I think it does.
Um,
Yeah.
and so like um, there's a way to be married that's the fucking like that's where you try to do it um, as a creative partnership, as this collaboration, and as this thing, and the idea of romance and blah blah blah. Or else there's a way to be married that's just kind of like roles. These are fucking roles, and this is what we, and then that becomes almost corporate in its fucking like logic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think we see that struggle then where it's like, well, what's an individual? Um, and obviously, different cultures express those things on different levels. The cool thing is that to see like, not like I'm just discovering this, but like for people who are getting into world cinema to see, well, it's not a one size fits all. You have all kinds of fucking different expressions of different cultures in the range in films, and not everything is fucking Toshiro Mifune screaming or some blood-soaked fucking samurai movie. And there's more to Japanese film than anime, and etc. Um, but I also wonder, like, with American cultures, and obviously American culture is not monolithic either, but um, American culture having a weird relationship with aging. Um, I wonder if people, including the critics, look at this movie and like, because it's honest about that, which American culture kind of like doesn't really. I mean, I think that's why people like Up. I mean, obviously it's good and it's sad and blah blah, but it might touch on something that like Americans aren't used to really touching on, like in terms of in media, and it awakens something in them that goes like, oh shit, like fuck, you know what I mean? Because we have such an obsession with youth and beauty and all of that I wonder how much that like, and because of that, I wonder if the critical response is like overcompensated.
I don't know. On the one hand, I think I'm glad you bring up Kurosawa and Asian cinema in general, from a Western viewpoint, is samurai, kung fu.
Yeah,
It's
tentacle porn. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
it's very much a violent and um highly dramatic uh genre of filmmaking. And
well, yeah. Sorry,
no,
sorry to interject. It's either Bruce Lee
yeah,
fucking meditating or it's Bruce Lee beating the shit out of somebody.
exactly. And there is that. Now, when you I'll give you my version of world cinema and the exploration of it. When a Western audience first encounters Japanese or Asian cinema, you're gonna see the action. You're gonna see kung fu fights. You're gonna see Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest. You're gonna see Toho, um, Godzilla. You're gonna see the spectacle. When you go into Japanese cinema, in particular, your entryway is usually Kurosawa, Mifune, and this grandness, this a certain kind of imperial and strange kind of individual take, whereas Japanese society is stereotypically considered almost monolithic in its movement away from the individual. It's so the group is everything, and what we're taught about the Imperial Army during World War II leads towards that. It feeds into the stereotype. But I think the human aspect of everything is that each person has to struggle with the fears and the emotion, anger and love that exists in each of our hearts and minds. And you you restrain that. You you put that in check in a lot of instances to adhere to the cultural norm. Kurosawa breaks away from that in many cases. A lot of If you watch his films, it's a lot of times the individual. The Mifune character in Seven Samurai, the Yojimbo character. Um, in some cases, you see the fight against the cultural norm. Um, your second foray into Japanese cinema is usually Mizoguchi, who I love. Sancho the Bailiff, but really Ugetsu. And we've talked about Ugetsu being one of the most beautiful. I think we both agreed that Ugetsu is one of the greatest films that we've seen. I don't know if you said that. I know I definitely said that. And I
We've
seem
talked
to
about
remember, yeah.
we've talked about it, and
Yeah.
we've looked at other. Yeah, we've
No,
looked at
I'm not sure what I don't remember exactly where. I remember you being quite fond of it. I don't know where you put it in the realm of cinema that you have seen and how it affects you, because movies basically exist for in the moment that you're watching it, but also reflectively in every other movie that you watch, saying that was not that, or it wasn't as good as that, or I haven't seen a movie as good as that since, that kind of thing.
yeah.
So um Mizoguchi for me was that. But they're both of them are usually historical epics. In Kurosawa's case, takes on Shakespeare, Ron, King Lear, Throne of Blood, Macbeth, The Bad Sleep Well, uh, Hamlet, I believe.
Hmm.
When you get to Ozu, Ozu is family drama. It's not flashy. It's I think he only made a handful of period pieces, but even those were not samurai films. They were not grandiose, action packed. I don't know if he could have done a film like that. Everything he did was the family, mothers, fathers, usually the daughter. He had a certain affection for the daughters, and I think there's a universality there. Love, the love that a family has for each other, is very prevalent in his films. And as I watch them, it's almost like recognizing how universal that is. That regardless of whether you're a Western audience, an Eastern audience, South America, Russia, France, Italian, the beauty of world cinema is how often at the core we're the same.
Right.
And I'm not, and I don't want to be corny about it, but there is something about humanity that makes love and pain walk hand in hand. And when they're reflected and dramatized on the screen, there is something there that makes you realize that we're not as different from each other as we want to believe. We are very different from each other in some sense, in some
Or as some
senses.
would want to have us believe.
Yes. And I think if you watch this film, I feel sorry for the people who would watch this film and say, I don't want to read this shit. Or I can't, this is just this is too foreign for me. Because
Well,
I can see this film being done in an American setting. And that wouldn't make it better. This film is beautiful for what it is, where it
yeah.
is, the time in which it's set, and I don't want to see it remade. I don't want to see it updated. I don't want to see an Americanized version of it. I love what this is. Um, and it's powerful because as I'm watching it, I'm thinking of my grandfather, I'm thinking of my grandmother, but I'm thinking about my mother, who I spend time with as much as I can now because I know um, this is how that story ends. And I got no illusions of that. I'm not sitting there.
I
Oh,
mean, yeah.
my mommy's gonna live forever. No, my mom's gonna fucking die at some point.
No one here gets out alive.
That's right. That's why she's got me by the fucking balls. That's why whenever she fucks up and pisses me off, and we get into it, it's movies like this that mean I can't go to sleep until I call her and work it out. And I know how fucking ridiculous that sounds, but I can't not do it. And it's because I've seen this story too many times.
Right. Otherwise, you'll be this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to be this movie. I don't want to and you know what? No matter how it plays out, I'm going to have regrets. And as I was watching it, I was just thankful that I'm just thankful that I have these lessons in front of me so that it doesn't come as a surprise. I live vicariously through these things, and I'm trying to avoid the missteps of life. Good movies help me do that. They help me see what's important. Maybe I wouldn't see it otherwise. Maybe I would. I don't know. The fact is that these movies play that role in my life. And as I watched it, I didn't get as emotional as I thought I was going to get. but it did start to hit me when Setsuko Hara, the widowed daughter-in-law, when they realize how important she is to them. And it's not a matter of their kids are so bad. It's just who she is. And they don't, you know, they don't even address the fact that Chishū and his Tomiko, I think her name is in the movie, Shukicho and Tomi, they were probably the same way with their parents. You know? This is not
Yeah,
an
there's
isolated
cycles,
thing. What would you say?
and there's a reversal. I said there are cycles, and there's like a
Yeah.
role reversal that
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot of times. And
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's like one of the stereotypes from American culture, and I guess I'm using American euphemistically here.
Yeah, we have to
Do
be real
that with that
careful with
what you
that one.
will.
So, yeah.
Do with that what you will.
Yeah.
But it is a stereotype.
Is there a code?
We'll
Is
say,
there a
well,
code
when you're
word that we
18,
should be saying, or what?
the fucking dog whistles.
Yeah.
When no, but the stereotype is like, okay, fucking, you're 18, get the fuck out of the house.
Yeah.
But then the parent who kicked out their kids, when they get old, they go to the fucking nursing home and like they're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the cat's in the cradle, silver spoon, motherfucker. You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, versus like critiques of like, oh, fucking, it's the grandma, the parents, the fucking kids, and their fucking kids all in one fucking house, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, and it's usually the grandma because the husband has died already, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, women outlive men.
Normally, yeah.
Yeah, it's like always like this, like in those mafia movies or whatever, it's always the little old ladies like in Sicily with wearing black because they've been widows for like 1,000 years, you know? Yeah. And yeah, it's one of those things. That's how my grandma was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's the different dynamics, but yes, there is a role reversal where you if you have those relationships with your parents and you get old enough, like eventually you will start treating them like your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really get it touches on a little bit of that in one scene where the dad who used to be a drinker comes back drunk, and like there's a moment where it's like fuck, like you falling back into your shit, like you come at 2 a.m, like it becomes almost like if you have kids and they come back late as fuck from wherever they went and they're all drunk or they're all whatever, and it's like, why the fuck are you here so late, blah blah blah. You know, whatever scolding that you give to them, it's like a lot of times you scold your parents because you're like, well, you know not to do this, don't be doing this because you can fall or you can do this, blah blah blah. And it's weird how those dynamics just play. They just, like you said, like in the same way a child reaches for the parent, sometimes the parent reaches for the child, you know, or for their adult child.
Yeah.
And yeah, this does hit those buttons. It's just how it hits them, or how it the buttons are there, and sometimes it doesn't hit them because that's not the style of a film. It's to not hit it, you know. So it's definitely one of those films, and it's not Clint Eastwood like, oh, I'm fucking old, but I'm gonna have redemption through violence, or like I'm gonna return to greatness through whatever the fuck, and I'm gonna grit my teeth and get back on the horse, you know. It's not that, and it's not a fucking it's not an Anthony Quinn like I may be fucking old, but I still have this lust for life, and now I'm gonna teach the younger generations how to drink wine and fuck, and in a black and white movie, you know. it's just um it's just quiet
Hmm.
fucking aging and dying. Um and just trying to like figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's and it's not American 70s or 80s sitcoms where the older person sits in their chair and talks shit, you know?
Yeah.
Um which which we also grew up on, you know? Um
It's refreshing. I think this movie, almost 75 years old, um, is so honest and real in its depiction of families and growing old and uh, our inability to see something for what it is. The daughter is an asshole, and they picked a great actress for it because she's really horrible. Um, her name is Haruko Sugimura, and she was the brothel owner in Redbeard, the last Kurosawa Mifune collaboration from, I think it was 60, 65, 66, somewhere around there. Um, Very selfish, but not a cartoon, not a caricature. She just seems
yeah.
like a daughter who's just eh, they're always going to be here. So what am I? She just seems to be taking them for granted.
Yeah.
That
It's just
is
like,
that
"Oh,
is an
you guys are
honest.
back?
Yeah,
You're back. Oh, we wanted you to go enjoy."
yeah,
Oh. Um yeah, I mean, but like I get it too.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like like there's an aspect of like, well, like you made your choices and you're living your like I'm living my life and now we have to blend this, but like I can't live your life. I can take care of you as much as possible, but I have to also live my life because I also have responsibilities. And in order to also help take care of you, I need to take care of those responsibilities so that I can help take care of you.
It's true.
It yeah, it's rough, you know. It's like I have to go to work. Um, so it's very hard. It's hard. It's hard to manage. Um,
But I think what the film does beautifully is it plays it honestly. It doesn't romanticize it. It doesn't play up the dramatics and make it doesn't demonize anybody. And it doesn't make the parents saintly. They're just them. They're just parents. They're not exceptional in any way, and they hint at a past that was difficult like all couples would have had. He drank. The mother put up with shit, but they got through it. And I don't know if it's love in the traditional sense of the way we're taught to believe. And that's another thing. We're taught to imagine this overwhelming romantic um, love that exists in the world where this is the more natural depiction of of an old married couple that I can imagine, where she's dizzy a little bit and he walks back to her. Does he reach to help her up? No. He just sits there and kind of waits. Are you ready? Okay. And then they start walking. I was like, motherfucker, help her up.
yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah,
But it's like, I was like, no, this is real. The skinny husband and his little fat wife. And I just I love that about it because I don't know if the film, this is where it becomes difficult. are the problems in the filmmaking or in the characters that are being portrayed? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of what I led
yeah,
with.
yeah,
It's that bridge between the style is restrained itself,
hmm
the camera work, all of that. The characters are restrained. There's an aspect of acceptance and restraint in the culture. There's an aspect of like there's a moderating force within uh post fucking atomic bomb fucking like country
yeah,
um that is like, yeah, we're gonna chill, after having like done all these fucking atrocities like
yeah,
before as an
yeah,
imperialist country. Um and um and then the director's restrained
yeah,
or repressed. So it's all of that,
yeah. But I think it works beautifully in the context of the film as a piece of art and as a commentary on the culture of the time, family relationships, the world that it exists in, as you say, the move, the machinations, the I think it's beautifully realized in that sense, and I think that's why it's recognized as the important film that it is. I don't know that I don't know that I love it as much as Seven Samurai or Vertigo or um, Citizen Kane. But the point of that is how do you even judge those films against each other?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
yeah,
a fool's errand as it is, you know?
it's arbitrary. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so if it's just a matter of recognizing a great film, then I would agree. This is a great film. This is an exceptional film about family and everything that isn't said. And it's all there. How everybody feels about everybody, it's all there. And there's a struggle to get it out. There's a struggle to let somebody know how important you are to them. There's a certain level of disappointment in your children for who they are, um, and a certain disappointment in yourself in both how you've lived your life and how the life has turned out. And it's not afraid of any of that. And for me, that's inspiring because it's an honest piece of work. For all of its for all of its inability to be honest, for the characters to be honest with themselves, I think the picture as a whole benefits from that level of honesty of how difficult we find it to be to recognize who we are. We lie to ourselves all the time. Every fucking day we lie to ourselves. Every time you put on that fucking smile and tell yourself it's going to be okay, it's not. It's going to end and it's going to end badly, but you're going to survive it and you're going to move on. And I think that is why this film has lasted because it's not it's not over dramatic. It presents it the way it is. If that had been an American film, oh, the fucking crying at that funeral would have been, it would have. It would have.
well, yeah,
I love it
and
so
then
much.
two people at the funeral would have ended up hooking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it would have been fucking August Osage County, basically.
Brilliant for a different reason, though.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it would have been something more along those lines.
Yeah.
And different forms of repression and
Yeah.
like acting out. Um, so yeah, it's very different film.
Yeah.
Or if it's a fucking Spanish speaking novela, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
even amped up more.
Yeah. It's refreshing. In a weird way, it's refreshing because it is so honest to the struggles of family.
Yeah.
And I really I appreciate that. I love watching it. I love that it's different. And I love that it makes me think a little bit more about what's important to me. That's at the end of the day, how does it a film like this is all about how it makes you look at your own life and the people in it. And I have to admit that it gives me a little bit to think about. And I'm happy that I can add to that fucking list of never ending shit that I'm never gonna get through.
Well, I mean, whenever a film can make you feel bad, that can be a great thing.
Yeah.
Um, buymeacoffee.com. Speaking of feeling bad,
Yeah.
I feel bad about this transition. Buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. Buymeacoffee.com/WatchRickRamos. This one goes to Cornelius Burrows. Thanks for your ever-present support. Thanks, everyone. Keep listening, keep watching, keep getting older if you can. Bye-bye.